Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Looking for an easy workout? You're in the wrong place. Peloton Tread has what you need to challenge yourself. Need to be pushed to your limit? Their elite coaches will keep you on track to break past your goals. Whether you're looking to get stronger or faster, Peloton Tread has everything you need to become everything you want. Find your push. Find your power. Peloton. Visit onepeloton.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of I Can Do. I'm Benjamin Lee. Thank you so much for tuning in, wherever you may be. I want to begin with a story from a book called There's a Hole in My Sidewalk by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. There's a hole in my sidewalk. Can you relate to any of those? What kind of sidewalk and walk are you on at this very moment when it comes to habits? My last podcast was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I talked about moving forward with focusing on habits with the I Can Do podcast. We'll continue to have guests where I'm going to focus on habits that they have and tips to increase our habits and to become better in our lives in every area. I have a plan, a vision of creating something to help people to arise and build their lives for the better. As we think about habits, habits will play a very important part. It affects every area of our lives, our spiritual lives, physical, emotional, financial, every area of our lives, relationships. We often can go down the same street or walk down the same street, see the deep hole that this author is talking about, fall in and feel helpless, and go back on that same street the next day and do the exact same thing. And eventually it becomes a habit. So what we have to do is make the decision when we see that big hole in the middle of the street that we decide, I'm not going to go down that path or go in that hole anymore. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go around it. Maybe I just go down a different street. That's when things will begin to change for the better in our lives. I want to talk about habits. I want to talk about building better habits. In particular, for this episode, I want to talk about being proactive. I got this story from 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens by Sean Covey. These 7 habits his father, Stephen Covey, emphasized and wrote about in the best-selling book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I absolutely love, which is something that I went through when I worked with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, something now that I'm going through with my family, something I'm continuing to focus upon even on myself. Habit number 1 is be proactive. So think about that story with the street. Be proactive. We don't have to keep walking down the same road. We don't have to keep walking down the same street. We can make the decision and take responsibility to do something else. Being proactive is about taking responsibility. There's a big difference in our language and even in our actions when it comes to being proactive versus reactive. And I want to read a little bit from the book, a little more, because it really helps us to see, just even think about language that you have used. Maybe think about language that you hear in your family. Think about language that you hear at the workplace, and you'll be able to quickly pick up and see people who are proactive versus people who are reactive. I'll give you a couple examples. Here is reactive language, and then I'll share what proactive language sounds like. Reactive language sounds like this: I'll try. Proactive language says, I will do it. A reactive person will say, that's just the way that I am. But a proactive person will say, I can do better than that. A reactive person says, there's nothing I can do. But a proactive person says, let's look at all of our options. A reactive person says, I have to. A proactive person says, I choose to. A reactive person says, I can't. A proactive person says, there's got to be a way. A reactive person says, you ruined my day. A proactive person says, I'm not going to let your bad mood rub off on me. You hear the difference? Our lives will be just so much better when we learn to be proactive instead of being reactive. But it's a choice that we have to make. It's a choice that we have to decide consciously every day. But it will be a much better way to live and to get the things that you're going after, to get the things that you want. On page 53 of the book, he says this, that it pays to be proactive. He says proactive people are a different breed. Proactive people are not easily offended. They take responsibility for their choices. They think before they act. They bounce back when something bad happens. They always find a way to make it happen. They focus on things they can do something about and don't worry about things that they can't. See, I love that. We don't worry about things that we can't change, that we don't have any control over. So our lives are going to be so much better, and I'm turning in the book here, when we learn to be proactive. And one page in particular that really caught my attention is page 63, where he talks about can-do people. Yes, this podcast is I Can Do. He talks about can-do people. So he says being proactive, it really means two things. Number one, first, you take responsibility for your life. Second, you have a can-do attitude. Can-do is very different from no can do. Can-do people take initiative to make it happen. No can-do people wait for something to happen to them. So don't wait for someone to email you. Don't wait for someone to see if they want to, create some kind of network with you. No, you go out and do that. You take the initiative. You go send that email. You go set up and get that cup of coffee with whoever it may be that you need to talk to. We take this initiative, the can-do people, make it happen. We make the conversation happen. We make the sale happen. We make the goals happen by taking initiative and not just waiting for someone to do something for us. Can-do people think about solutions and options. No can-do people think about problems and barriers. It's so easy to list all of our problems with our spouses, all of our problems with our children, all of our problems with our country, all of these problems. But can-do people, they think about solutions and options. Can-do people act. No can-do people are acted upon. Now, who do you want to be? What example do you want to leave for your children, for your spouse, for the church? We need to be can-do people. You see, when we have this mindset, when we are proactive, and really everything begins, as you think about building better habits, when it comes to being proactive. When we take that step back and make the conscious decision to act, to not be acted upon, but and not to wait for other people, but we're in control. We're able to pause. We're able to think. We're able to stay in the moment. To be proactive is all about really taking responsibility. So if we want a bigger podcast, then we have to be proactive and take the responsibility. We have to be proactive in our health. We can't just wait for someone to come help us. We have to learn to be proactive. 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. It's one of my favorite books here. One of my favorite books. And yeah, it's a book for teens, but it's really a book for all of us, because being proactive is actually a very challenging thing to do. You see, you may face some resistance being proactive, because you may have people in your family that have not been proactive, and you may have picked up that habit. But here's the good thing about a habit: the habits that we pick up are habits that we can put back down. So I want to challenge you as we move forward with this podcast, and as we start setting our intentions for 2025. Where do you need to become more proactive? Where do you need to become more action minded? The first thing that we all need to do, we all need to look in the mirror. You see, it's very easy to look at other people and say, oh, wow, I can see they are reactive. But what about us? We need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, am I walking on that road that has that same huge pothole? And I keep falling in the same pothole over and over again, thinking that something different is going to happen? No, that's not going to work. And we know that. Deep down, we know that, right? So now the question is, are we going to take the initiative and take the action necessary to have that I can do mindset, to arise and build the life that we want, to go after the goals, to make the changes, to elevate our lives for the better? Be proactive.